Someone had to say it. Welcome back to Someone Had to Say It. On today's episode, we interviewed Angelika Morris. She is a Princeton and Harvard educated anthropologist turned matchmaker. We talked to her about her matchmaking, about her trips all over the world, bringing locals and out of towners together, how she sold all of her possessions and went on a global soul journey. There is so much more that we talked about, so please listen and enjoy. Welcome back to Someone Had to Say It. We have another very special guest today, a colleague of mine, a matchmaker and coach. Well, actually, there's a whole background. Before I go into all of that, welcome Angelika Morris to the
Hi,
podcast.
thank you so much.
We are so happy to have you. And before I go into your whole background, maybe you can share a little bit about yourself because you went to Princeton, you majored in anthropology, and
Yes.
then you turned into matchmaking.
Yeah,
So there's so much about that because anthropology is really study of humans, right?
right,
People. So
exactly.
how did that happen?
Yeah, so I never thought I would be doing matchmaking, but it's a full circle moment. My mom was actually a matchmaker, and that's in part how she met my dad. She did it for a few years, like a startup business. Her main career as a speech pathologist, but she started a matchmaking business for African Americans in Tampa Bay who were Christian who wanted to meet each other. That's how I came to be. And she was just always like that type of person to make friends easily and really organic. This was before like the industry or computers, really. And it was as simple as we have one topic, one culture, one group of people, and come and be friends. And that simple, which I really love. And but it was like one of those things like, oh, that's cute, but like you can't make real money from that. So I thought I was going to be a doctor, and I did pre-med and anthropology at school, and it was good. I liked it, but I know I really liked talking to people, and I actually didn't like my science classes. I was just like, I could pass them and everything. And I actually started at Harvard Medical School right after college. I didn't take any breaks, and I was so exhausted and burnt out, but I was checking off my goals. And then my dad passed away the year I graduated college. And it was just like, wow, to give your whole life to corporate America. And no one guy was who became a friend was at his funeral, but everyone else, there's not one person from work that was at his funeral after doing all these big things and everything. It's just because, I mean, there's a lot of issues with his health. So it wasn't like in the middle of work, he dropped dead and no one showed up. But the point is, when you get sick, when life happens, work is work, and corporate America does not care about you, and family is what's important. So in seeing that experience, feeling that experience, I decided to follow my passion, and that was talking to people, helping them through, it was not just love, but really just spiritual afflictions. My grandmother was always a spiritual mentor. So was my mom. And I had a dream about matchmaking, actually. So I decided to pursue it in a very like casual, low-key way, like the way my mom did. And then I found through LinkedIn, like the industry and like, oh, people make a lot of money. I didn't know that rabbit hole. And then finding myself in the middle of, okay, how do I create a profitable business that feels soul-centered, good, and community-oriented? So that's where I am now. And that's how I got here, essentially.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious because I know that you were in Harvard in a research, one of like the leading research labs studying social medicine and well-being. And I've never heard about what is social medicine, if you could just go into that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question. So social medicine is how systems of society, race, class, culture affect our health and well-being, essentially our relationship with the world, and how does that affect our health and our relationship with each other. And through my research, which is kind of like, duh, we know this intuitively, but for some reason we have to research it.
Right.
Which is another reason why I dropped out of research, because I felt like we were answering inherent truths. That the more close relationships you have, the longer you will live, the healthier you will be, regardless of finances.
And it's so
And
interesting because I think
yeah,
even with dementia, they say that helps prevent dementia, social
it really
relationships.
does. And in America, American culture, with the exception of a lot of immigrant cultures, so many people are lacking close relationships, and the loneliness epidemic is so real. So I felt like, though I'm not a doctor of science, I feel like I'm a doctor of the heart, of helping people just connect more and feel included in the world.
Mm-hmm. I think that that's so beautiful because of what you do now, which is what kind of I was intrigued by you in general because we're not going to mention how old you are, but you're a fairly young person and you have accomplished so much that it's so rare to see in this day and age because with that where we are in the world with our culture, people are moving on from one thing to another. They don't stick with anything anymore. And not only that, obviously we connected because we're in the same industry, but I saw what you were doing and how you were bringing people about. You go, and I'd love to talk more about this. So you basically bring people to these amazing places. I mean, you could talk about your last retreat you just did. It was like a singles trip, but it was so holistic and it was so, I wish I was there, although I'm
Thank
not
you.
single. But I would love to come on one of these trips.
Yes, thank
Tell us
you.
a little bit about what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So one of my passions is travel. I started traveling because when my dad passed away, I got rid of all my material possessions, like literally 95% of my
Well,
things, and backpack
wow.
around the world for 2 years because I was just like, stuff doesn't
Yeah.
matter. And
Yeah.
I want to create memories and grieve and just experience the world. So I did that, and I brought people with me by like talking about it online and having women sign up and follow me around. So we've done Mallorca, Spain, Cappadocia, Turkey, Cairo, Egypt, Rio, Brazil, Medellin, Colombia, just this past 2 months. And we already have Kenya 2026 planned in
Oh, can I
January.
come? Can I
Yes,
please?
it's very open. I'll tell
Do
you
you
how
let
much.
married people come?
What?
Yeah, it's very open. So I'll tell you like the philosophy of it. So technically they're not really singles trips. They're more of solo travelers who want to solo travel together. But by definition, most people are single. And the philosophy is, okay, we're going to have a week or so of organized meetups, experiences for people to connect authentically. So in Colombia, we did language exchanges, we did hiking, we did all these like incredible tours around the country. And Americans or whoever can pay the normal fee, they pay a typical retreat fee. And then locals, they get to come for free. And yeah, so I do it like essentially so Americans can meet new people and locals can also engage in this digital nomad economy and talk about their businesses and create like a cross-cultural experience. And then also I get into the expat communities already living there and they get a discounted rate since they don't have to travel. But I give basically 3 different communities a way to connect all in one space. And in Colombia, we had 150 people in our group. Wow. And not 150 people at each experience, but all together. So maybe 10 people for dinner, and I give people a way to RSVP for dinner, 20 people on a hike, 5 people doing a flower workshop. And it's just whatever people want to do, but they all know they're part of this global community. And yes, love happens. I talk about matchmaking a lot, but it's really organic. And if someone signs up for a paid service, great, but that's not really my goal. It's just to get people out of their minds and really connect across culture, class, and all these different things because so many people have all these limiting beliefs on who they can be friends with or who they can fall in love with, but it's really not true when you share the same mission. So I try to remind people you share the same mission, and then as a business owner, I do my pricing and experiences based on who can afford what. If you're a billionaire and you're expecting whatever experience, okay, you should pay billionaire prices. But if you're a local person in Colombia making like less than $300 a month, come for free. I'll pay for your dinner, hang out with us. Like everyone has something to offer. And it's just like, do we have the same mindset? That's the most important thing, mindset.
I love that so much. And so I'm
Yeah.
wondering, in all of your global travels, have you come across any cultures, let's say, who have more successful relationships? I know within different cultures, there's different even matchmaking cultures within that. So I'm just curious if you could tell us a little bit about that too.
That's a great question. So if we define success as like no divorce, which is tricky because it doesn't necessarily mean you're happy, but let's say people get married and they're not getting divorced. I would say I really like Egyptian culture, which because I dated when I was single in Egypt for a little bit, like a liberal Egyptian guy is kind of like the same vibe as an American conservative guy for us.
Oh,
like
interesting. Wow.
Traditional, like very masculine protector and provider, commitment-minded role, and I liked that.
Yeah.
When I mean conservative and liberal, like not in the political sense of who you vote for, but I mean worldview. So it was like just refreshing as an American to like go out with a guy and he doesn't expect to sleep with me or to like do anything with me, and he expects like in a few months we would get engaged or I would meet family. It was just a different process, and it was essentially marriage oriented. And coming from the US, relationships aren't naturally marriage oriented. Most are not. So it was cool for me to see cultures where marriage is the goal, and yes, people do things in modern ways, but ultimately they want to build a family, and that was just really touching for me.
Wow, I love that. Which I think for Heidi, it's coming from an Orthodox Jewish culture, that's how people date. You don't date just to date; you're dating to find your partner, and there is no physical part of it, right? Which Heidi can talk more about that.
I mean, I went out on 3 dates and then I got engaged, and I was wondering, like, in your experiences, is there a timeline that's too short?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I typically, for me personally, as Angelika, yes, because I'm not like in that cultural space. But I think the way as a coach, I tell people, is it too short or too fast? Is based on your culture, what is the norm? And the person that you're going to be engaged or married to, does your family already know them, like for generations? And a lot of Orthodox communities around the world, it seems like, oh, you only went on 3 dates, but really for 7 generations, your family has known this person or have heard of this family, so you know where they come from. Versus here in America, it's like on Bumble, someone could be, you don't know who they're going to be, so you're going to need longer time to vet. So that's how I see it. How deep are your roots? And depending on how deep are the roots, the shorter you can date. And if there's no roots and you're doing it all yourself, probably take longer. Typically 18 months is like the optimized in American culture, assuming you don't know anything about this person or their family.
So why do you think it is that I've heard a statistic where singles who move in together before marriage sometimes typically have a higher divorce rate than those who don't? Why would that be?
Yeah, I think it's because people don't actually know how to date for marriage or legacy. So then they hook up out of convenience, and it's so expensive. It's hard to disentangle rent and things, and people just kind of like shack up together and don't really have much intention behind it until it's too late. And they're like, well, we've already been together so long. Versus in more traditional communities, even outside of religion, I think it's really good to have that physical distance, at least initially, to see like, is this really a good match, or is this convenience, or am I stuck in a financial situation? I think that's where people really struggle, especially for women in the secular world, where we're told that, or everywhere, that our value decreases, which I don't agree with, based on how much we age. Yeah. So it's like American women are being in these like terrible traps to me of being a girlfriend for 5 years to break up, get on the dating market past 30. And then it's like, well, what do you do? But it's not the girl's fault. She really thought she'd marry that guy. And it's just, it puts women in a really, really bad position. I think as women, we need to value our time. It's more expensive, and make decisions quickly and not move in.
Yeah, it's so interesting because the dating world, in America versus Europe or anywhere else in the world is so different. And
Mhm.
it was, you were talking about your own experience with, and you are engaged, I want to say, right? You have
Yes.
you
Oh,
found your person.
Yes.
So
I
Mazel
still didn't move
tov.
in with him yet, though.
Mazel
Yeah.
tov.
Thank you.
And it's interesting because it makes me think about my, not only my own relationship, but even my parents who, my mom was from Ukraine. My dad was from Latvia. She came to Latvia for just a holiday with her brother. And they ended up staying in someone's house because that's how people traveled back
Mm,
then. And this was during communism. So you didn't stay in hotels. They didn't have hotels really. They stayed with someone they knew, and if they were Jewish, it was another Jewish family. So somebody heard,
mm,
oh, Jana and her brother Michael are coming. Let's welcome them in. Who can open their house to them? So they stayed with a family, and they heard that there's a hot blonde Jewish woman. So everybody wanted to see her from Ukraine. So my mom she looked just like Princess Di with her
Aw.
hair, everything. She's got like these greenish eyes, and she wore mini skirts, like, and platforms, and so my grandma, my dad's mom, is like, I'm gonna go check out this, a blonde, a Jewish woman from Ukraine, a blonde, like, let's go check this out. It was so like, she was so different. So
Yeah.
she went, she fell in love with her, and she's like, I gotta make this happen. I got my son to, I
That's
need
so
him.
funny.
That's so
So the
cute.
first time he comes over, and I think I wrote it in my book, he came over and she was tying her shoes, bent over, tying her platforms in a mini skirt.
Oh my
Ah,
God.
He walked right in because it was his grandfather's house. And there she is, bent over, tying her platforms in a
That's so
mini skirt.
cute.
Like, yep, that's the woman for me. And they saw each other for a week. And at the end of the week, my dad said, we're getting married, right? So here's a ring. Yeah, I don't even know what he gave her, but he's like, let's get married. After a week, she went back to Ukraine, told her parents, we're getting married. I found a man, and it was like a week in between, and 2 months
Mhm.
later they were married. And
That's
that's how it
amazing.
was done.
Yeah.
No hesitations. Now people hesitate for years.
Oh my
I know
gosh.
couples that went out
Yes.
for 10 years. They
Yeah.
still weren't sure. And
So,
that's the
yeah,
difference.
so I was just wondering when it comes to love at first sight, for example, what do you think it sometimes gets confused with lust at first sight? What's your opinion on that?
Mm.
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh,
Do I believe in love at first sight? Uh, I don't think I've ever personally experienced love at first sight because I'm just like maybe it's like how my brain, I'm very analytical and business minded where I'm kind of like, is he a stable man? Is he safe? Blah blah blah. Okay,
Right.
he's cool enough. Yeah. So it's more of a logical decision. But I do believe that people can like find that soul resonance and fall in love at first sight. But love to me is a decision. You have to keep choosing it and building it. So if you feel that love feeling and then you keep building on it for 30 years, then it's love. But if you give up after 2 weeks, then maybe it was just lust.
right.
So I think the
Yeah.
time will tell how
And
much you're willing to build.
I've
Yeah.
heard women say or I've heard recently a podcast where a woman was married and she was happily married and she had kids. And then she had a coworker who she said she couldn't help but fall in love with. So for her, it wasn't a decision. It was just something she
Yeah.
said happened to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
That's really
Wow.
hard when you're already married and it's just like, I think
Yeah.
maybe you can fall in love with someone, but you don't have to act on it. Like it's still, we have free will, or you can choose to make an arrangement that works for your relationship or what to do. I think, yeah, you can fall in love at first sight, but you choose your actions. Like you decide if you're going to sleep with
Right.
them, if you're going to break up your relationship, or if you're going to just be like, wow, I feel love for this person, but I like the union I have.
But I can't do anything about. I think that goes back to, we talked about this before, Heidi. With I believe that there's multiple soulmates that we have. I don't believe we only have one,
Right.
because our lifetimes are long if we're lucky, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I think there's soulmates for different parts in your life. That's at least what I believe. And for people to say, while you're in a relationship, but I couldn't help fall in love with someone else. Sure, it can happen, but like you just said, Angelica, if you're in a committed relationship and you're truly happy, then you should just kind of walk away. Obviously, if there's issues, right, and there's a reason for
That
it, but
that
it's
was the
tough.
part that was so confusing to me. Is she said she was happy with her husband, but she ended up deciding ultimately with her husband that they should have a divorce, and what ended
Wow.
up having a year. So she didn't cheat on her husband. She made a very logical decision with him. Okay, I need to see where this is going to be. And a
Wow.
year after they divorced, the three of them, well, I guess five with the two boys, they all moved in together. And 9 years
Oh,
later, they're all still living happily
wait,
together.
the husband, the new guy, and
Yes.
her and the kids.
Yes. So she
Wow.
ended up marrying the coworker that she said she just couldn't help but fall in love with. Like in a ridiculous, I think it was 3 months after her divorce or even less. And 9 years later, they're all still happily living together in the same house, raising the kids.
Wow. I want to hear this podcast.
I know it was on Barry Weiss. I was so fascinated by it. I'm like, what?
That is interesting.
Like, how can you be happily married and then still fall? But like you said, Julia, maybe
Yeah,
we all have more than one soulmate, and she just
yeah.
happened to run into. I don't know how the sex works. I really,
Well, that's what I
on
want
that.
to know.
Yeah.
Who is sleeping with who, and is there multiple things going on? Because that
Right.
that would be very fascinating. But I think you can. My husband says I fall in love with people every day. I meet people everywhere I go, and that's what it is. I think you can fall in love with someone, and you have a connection with them. I don't know if it's fall in love, but you can have a connection with multiple people. It doesn't mean that you can't be loyal to someone, or maybe sometimes people need to have that conversation like, hey, which is I mean, can you imagine being with someone for 10 years or longer and then just say, look, I met someone and I want to see where this goes? I mean, that's devastating.
Yeah.
But if you look at relationships in Europe, monogamy is not such a big deal.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it
Exactly.
you know what I mean? It's not viewed as like, you're stepping out of your marriage. I mean, it was never that way. So in human beings, I've always said, and I've got so much hate for it when I said it out on the podcast before, is that I don't think human beings are meant to be monogamous, but if we want it to be, then they do. Then you make it work if that's
Right.
what you want.
I think it's like from an anthropological perspective, it's a choice of like monogamy as a system. So is polyamory, and you can choose based on your goals what system works best for you and your family, as long as everyone's consenting. And that's the beautiful thing about life, where there's just like so many options. Like, it's always funny when people say like, I want a traditional relationship. And like, really, a traditional relationship is like people living in community. They have multiple partners. Everyone's raising the kids together, and there's no bounds of property. It's just we live in this compound. Like, that's the most traditional thing of what we've been doing for human history. Not the housewife and the dad goes to work for
Yeah.
8 hours, but
That's
that's how people
fascinating.
define tradition now.
Mhm.
Which is very new. But yeah, I really think it's
Yeah.
what economic factors make sense, what emotional factors make sense, and then create the mix that works for your lifestyle.
So I know that you talk, I think, Angelica, about having almost like a prophetic intuition when it comes to matchmaking. And I was wondering, can anybody tap into that? Is there like a process where anybody
Mhm.
has that capability? Or do you think that there's just always some people who are going to be more prophetic in a way than others?
That's a great question. I think all women have really strong intuition, and the world clouds it out and confuses us or tells us that we're the same as men, and we're not. We have a divine sense of intuition, and we can see energy. And in that sense, yes, anyone can be great at matching if they tap into their intuition. But then, the way certain signs come to me, it just, you have to be born with it. And for me, it's always dreams of like psychic capabilities, very specific, not in terms of matchmaking like my client necessarily, but just life, where it's like I would see something about a person or know something, and then if I remember it, it means I'm supposed to tell them, and it's for their good or for their benefit. So that's like how I believe everyone has it, but people just have it at different capacities and how much they're willing to listen to it as well.
And have you ever come across a couple that you met and you're like, oh, this is not gonna last?
Like a matchmaking couple, or
I don't know, just like in life. Have you ever met a couple where you're like, oh
yeah.
boy,
you feel they're not compatible?
Right.
They're not right
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna change the details of some of this story for privacy. But there is this person who was like in this business group I was a part of, and me and her just like really connected on a friend level. And then I had a horrible dream that her husband pushed her into the pool and was like strangling her, and it was awful.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I had a dream that like she lost her engagement ring, and I just like messaged her one day like, hey, are you okay? I've been like, things have been like coming to me. And she was like, all these things were happening and I lost my ring. And I'm like, oh my gosh, not to freak you out, but I've been having dreams about this. Like, are you okay? And like, she took it well. And she was like, thank you for checking on me. I'm good. Just going through a lot. And I don't know where they are now because we weren't super close. It was just like a business accelerator.
Is she dead?
No, she's definitely not dead because I definitely looked her up. And I had a dream that her husband passed away, but it was like a relief because he was very cruel.
Ooh.
So,
oh my God.
Yeah, I have like things like that where it's like sometimes the same thing about the same person, and for whatever reason, they're in my spirit.
And you have to, I hope you do share with people, because I have very vivid dreams too. I've shared some of my thoughts and my dreams with Heidi. I
totally panicked. Yes.
Oh yeah. I was like, can I ask you something? I do that to people. I don't know how the reaction is. Do you often tell people? Because I've been holding back for many, many years because I have very crazy premonitions and dreams like every night.
Wow.
Do you just go ahead and tell people, or do you hold back?
I always tell people, but I say it in a way that's encouraging and powerful rather than defeating or scary, because you can always say the same message, but it's how you package it. Like, instead of saying, I would never tell someone, oh, I had a dream that your husband strangled you and pushed you into a pool and then you died. That's like awful to say. I would just like, hey, I'm checking in on you. I want to make sure you're really taking care of yourself and you're being treated well. And I wish you all the best. If you need anything, please reach out. And like, I hope things are going like, just like a reminder, like an open door. If someone was being abused, they can say something. But
wow, I have a lot to learn from you.
Well, that's what Julia did. That's what Julia did. And then I'm like, oh my God, am I being abused? What's going on? I'm like so easily gaslit. And then I'm like, wait, what if my husband's cheating on me? And so like I start texting. I don't know. I'll keep you guys updated. So far,
like that's the thing. When I have these thoughts and I just go right into it, and I've had to learn to kind of, I need to learn how to do that better. But I don't have much of a filter, and I always tell people I know it's my Eastern European culture. We're very direct, right? And I have to. My kids even told me, I was like, Mom, you could have delivered that a little better. Like, that wasn't the right thing maybe to say, but I have a lot to learn from you. But it's fascinating though. So when you have these thoughts and when you have these dreams, we'll go back to matchmaking and everything else too, but do you automatically like, okay, I have to check on these people? Do you take your time? Do you wait till you have another dream or feeling?
Yeah, I know it's immediately. Like, if I remember it, I say, if you don't remember the dream, it's a dream, because we have so many dreams that we don't process. But if you remember it, it's a message, because then it implants on your conscious. So there are a lot of things happen in the subconscious, but if you actually remember it, to me, it's a message. And it's my job to like filter it in a way that people can receive it and do something with it. And I've had like people's parents come to me, like who passed away, and like very specific messages for their children. And like sometimes it's awkward because I'm not really close with the person that the message is for, like a girl I went to school with. We never had a class together, but I just know she was in my year, and her mom passed away. And then her mom came to me on her mom's birthday, which I didn't know about. I didn't even know her mom's name, and like gave me this message and was like, please tell Sarah, and making up names. And I messaged her on Facebook, like, I hope you don't think this is inappropriate or anything, but I had this dream. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is spot on. This is what I've been praying for. Thank you. And people are very grateful. So it's nothing I can control. I just tell what I need to tell.
Oh my God, this is amazing. I didn't even know this about you, but okay, now we're gonna like, you need to tell me if you feel anything.
Yeah, so if I get it, I'll tell you.
Please do. Yeah. I think that's part of the reason where I felt such a connection with you, because we both lost our dads and they were young. I mean, your father was really young, right? When he passed, wasn't in his
late
60s? 50s. Oh my God. So that's hard, and that's got to change you too, because I know it changed me and how I moved on in life. I mean, look at you, sold everything, you went on to do such different things, which in a way, and when it first happened, people kept telling me there's a reason for everything. And I just wanted to tell them to fuck off, because when your father dies suddenly, right, you're like, the last thing you can think of, oh, there's a reason for this, right? But as the time goes on, it's hard as it is to accept it, why someone passes away, especially when it's so sudden or so early on in their life. But now the things that have come from it, I think there has to be a reason, right? So do you feel like that really changed you? Is that why you took such a detour with where you were going professionally in life?
Yeah, I really believe it was a perspective shift. I mean, people always say I come across as like an old soul and very mature for my age, because my life is crazy. Like the things I've experienced in such a short amount of time is like what most people don't experience in a whole lifetime. So that's why. So when he passed away, it was like an end of a very long chapter, which I'll summarize in 2 minutes. So the chapter was essentially, he came from Jamaica, undocumented originally, washed cars, worked his way up, American dream, got into a Toyota franchise and owned a franchise, which was huge. Like it's like less than 1% of people can do that, especially being a Black man. He was like the only one.
Wow.
And it was a $40 million business. And we lived this high life. Like I lived a very privileged life growing up. And both my parents didn't come from wealth. So they always taught us to be super humble, to the point of it was almost like unworthiness thing. Like we never had friends that were on our financial level, because my parents always felt guilty. So they would give back to the point where it's like they would buy people cars, homes.
Oh my gosh.
Where they're so generous to the point where it's like getting taken advantage of us, taken advantage of. And then all these crazy things happen where the business was unfairly taken from them. And unlike the other dealers or like Old Boys Club, they did not have the family or financial backing to keep the business. So we went from 40 million to bankrupt to negative.
Oh, no.
All in the span of a few years. So I know what it was like to have everything and then not have it, and then also have a community of people that only want to take. It was very exhausting. So like my matchmaking brand, I say, yes, it's elite matchmaking, but for people who value success beyond the superficial, meaning they want someone that's as educated, that makes great money, that can provide the lifestyle, but they also want someone with soul and someone kind and someone giving, because that's where I feel like in my life was really like not lacking, because they had all that, but my dad especially, my dad was so committed to chasing money and the American dream that he died early after getting sick.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
forgetting like money isn't the goal, family is the goal, peace is the goal. It doesn't matter if you don't have this big business anymore. He could have had a regular job. My mom works, like we would have been fine living a regular life, but after having the most, it's like his ego could not take it anymore. So I help people navigate like social class and things, because, you know, women always say like as rich as possible, blah, blah, blah. But it's like,
Yeah.
you really don't know how these like super ultra wealthy guys get when they have this much money. And yeah, so many nuances to society that I help people navigate.
Amazing. I saw the video that you posted about it, and I was watching it, and first of all, I could believe that because, well, people don't share everything, right? So getting to know you, obviously, I had no idea. And it's such a story. I mean, I feel like you should write a book
Me
about
too.
everything and you should, about what your family went through. I think it's not only inspiring, obviously, but to teach people, to educate people that this is how you can rise above, you can rebuild, you can, move on, and also not be chasing the wrong things, not surround yourself with the wrong people, which I constantly talk about as well. And it's interesting you say that, because my oldest at 25, he's almost 26, just decided to leave. God, I hope he put in notice. Hopefully by the time this comes out, his work knows, but he decided to quit his cushy corporate job at Ford Motor Cars, where he's got a corporate car, company car. He's got everything. He's doing great, but 25. And he's gonna quit, and he's going back to school to learn to fly helicopters like my youngest son, and they're gonna live together in Hawaii and go to flight school. And at first, as an immigrant, I'm like, oh hell no, you cannot do this, right? Like you're set, you're doing well, you got money, you got a 401k. I mean, this is every immigrant dream. And in my head, then my husband, who is not an immigrant, he's like fourth generation, he's like, we have to let them live their life. And you cannot do what your dad did, which is exactly what you just said. To my dad, the only thing that mattered was money. And not in the sense that he wanted to be a billionaire. It's just putting a roof over our kids. You have a steady paycheck, you have health care, you have a 401k. That's it. That's all that matters in life. He never did anything fun until the very end. He didn't have hobbies, he didn't have interests. He just in the last couple years started to do photography again and enjoy life. And I think that's a big immigrant thing, is that we just live and we struggle and then we die. And I'm trying to change that narrative for a lot of immigrants, and how's your mom doing now? Like, how has she been through everything? I'm sure that was devastating to lose them.
She went through, well, they were divorced for 8 years before that. So also the financial thing created a lot of issues, marital issues naturally. She was a stay-at-home mom for 17 years, but luckily had her education. So she was able to get right back into the workforce, which is incredible after a 17-year pause.
Yeah.
To like keep all
Good
your
for her.
Yeah. So it's been like inspiring, because she's been at all levels and experiences a woman can have. She's been the posh stay-at-home wife, she's been the homeschool mom, she's been the soccer mom, she's been the independent working woman. She's like done everything.
Yeah.
And it just reminded me that we as women have so much like we are multidimensional. Yeah. And sometimes, especially when people are seeking their match, they stick onto one identity and say, this is who I have to be. But life can change and bring you unexpected things. Like, who are you outside of this label you give yourself? And that's really important to me, where it was easier for me to find my match because I had her as an example of, I wasn't really too attached to the idea of, oh, I have to be a stay-at-home mom, I gotta live this lifestyle, or I'm attached to this career. It was kind of like, whatever life throws at us, because it's been so crazy, I can't expect anything. Let me find someone that has good values, kind, stable, and everything else will just take it moment by moment, because I don't really know what life will bring. My life has been anything but predictable thus far.
I think that is the best advice you could ever give somebody because that's exactly it. You can't control circumstances. The only thing
Yeah.
you can try to control, I guess, is looking for somebody who has common values. Although, do you ever come across or do you ever think people can change? Like people, let's say, that meet in their 20s, do you think that maybe their values ever change or their core personalities ever change as they get older? Or do you think they're ultimately the same?
I think people's values and personality can change, which is hard when you're making a lifelong commitment. But like according to the Gottman Institute, one of the number one predictors of long-term marriage is flexibility and growth mindset. So it's not that people won't change or be a completely different person. It's, are they committed to growing together and growing in the same direction and hopefully getting deeper and mesh as the years grow on versus growing apart. And people typically grow apart when and it's not their fault, but like there's some sort of inflexibility, like lifestyle wise, ideology wise, something where it's like we can no longer fuse our lives together. And if a divorce happens, it happens, but long term people are able to stay together if they're able to keep negotiating their lives over time.
Yeah.
Like,
And speaking of Gottman Institute, I actually was reading, their books are amazing. I followed them forever. In fact, I submitted my husband and I for their Love Lab, which they no longer have. They haven't had it in a long time, but I thought it would be fascinating to go and just be observed, where they just put people in their little lab, which is a room, like a hotel room, and they just observe them, how they talk, how they communicate. One of the things they said is well, I think it was Dr. John Gottman who said that he can predict if a couple is going to get a divorce, last or not, by the way they communicate, right? All you need is like 10 minutes with them, which is so true, because I think us as matchmakers, we do the same thing. When I meet with someone, I can tell within 10 to 15 minutes who this person is about. He's lying to me or she, if they're if they're holding something back, if they say one thing but really it's the opposite of what they say, and it's so fascinating because just by the way a person communicates, you can tell so much about them. I love the Gottman Institute. I also truly believe in the advice of Esther Perel, who I was just telling Heidi about before, because they have like such a different view, especially Esther Perel, who's European. She wasn't raised in America, and the view that she takes in relationships is very worldly view advice, and I think that is actually more important than how people are in North America and the States and Canada. And I really think it's the relationships have declined in our country, and the way people are in a relationship looking for something new, something better, next, grass is always greener. And I think communication is huge. I mean, you can vouch for that as well, with every client, right? How they communicate with me is how they will communicate with their match. And what they're showing me is what, and I always tell them that look at me as the intermediary, because the way you talk to me is how I'm going to describe you to your potential match. Are you kind?
It's
Are you
crazy
nice?
people don't get that.
Right? Or showing up to me with a matchmaker with a wrinkled shirt or being late or not. How do you think I'm going to describe you to your match? Oh, he showed up on time. Well, he didn't. Well, he was dressed nice. So he's this or she's this, right?
Right.
Talking.
Yeah, I think that also relationship satisfaction has declined a lot. Not just are people getting married or not, but how satisfied they are in relationships. And I think, capitalism and individualism has to do with a lot of that, where it's so pervasive in our culture, and in other places it's not, where to exist in a relationship, you have to be selfless and you have to be willing to cooperate and willing to compromise. And those values are not taught in America. It's taught like people are products and you can customize them and you can buy them literally, historically, and like through things like matchmaking indirectly. People think they can buy people. And that's a big problem when trying to create a lasting relationship. So these are like the business questions I think about a lot of, like, how do I create a matchmaking model that's also profitable, that doesn't allow people the inherent belief that they're buying another person. And one way of doing that is offering these like travel experiences where they're paying for travel, and matchmaking is technically free. If it happens, it happens. I'll introduce them, but they know they're paying for a concrete experience rather than a certain number of introductions. And things, how I phrase things is like, they pay to talk to me, but I don't promise introductions. I don't promise matches. I don't promise anything. They're paying for my time. Anything else is like, we'll see what happens. And if a success fee if they get married, but they know I don't really owe them anything, and it's how they treat me. And they have a very discreet thing that they're paying for, and everything else is up to chance and then success fee after. So that's how I'm doing it now, always creating and envisioning new ways, because that's also hard when you're trying to do this for a living and making people happy and making money and taking care of yourself. Because I've also tried completely free, no money, from the goodness of my heart, and it was awful. It was the worst thing ever.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, you get what you pay for, and also you need them to value you and what
exactly.
you do. And when it's free, they're not valuing the advice that you give, the time that you put into it. And it's hard, because I see that a lot. I see it with the mitzvah matchmakers who really just, are matching people for free, and in the hopes in the end, there's a success fee, and a lot of times I think people don't pay, or they don't tell them that they got engaged.
Oh my gosh. That's
terrible. Yeah. So, which kind of brings me to, there's so much to what you do, because I feel like it's very organic way to meet someone while you're traveling on a trip. And like people always say that you will not get to know a person better than when you go on a trip with someone, when you travel with them.
Interesting. Right? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Think about it, right? Traveling is not all happy and exciting. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, right? The delays, the time, the waiting, the planes are late and this happens, or there's an issue with the hotel, and it's how that person is reacting to all those things that come across, which you can probably talk about more about that, Angelika, observing people while you're out there with them, right?
Yes, I love it. Like, also, like, for my personal dating life, so another thing I did was I did 400 first dates, actually.
You yourself?
Myself.
Whoa.
Like, obsessively. Yeah. For the course of like 2.5 years. And that's how I started my brand of like vlogging them. I've deleted them because I kind of felt weird having them on there when I'm in a relationship now, because I was talking about all these guys intimately. But it was 2.5 years, and basically I would see it as a business problem of like, okay, I need 5 dates a week. Why? Because I eat dinner 5 times a week, so I might as well bring a man along. And I would just include men in what I would do naturally, but the goal was 5 a week, and very systematically, like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, continue. And just saw it as like a very logical process. And for me, it was easy because I wasn't emotional. I never slept with any of them until it was relationship, which helps a lot. I was like, don't sleep with them because you'll get attached. It's not that hard to forget about someone after dinner, but it's really hard if you feel like you gave your body and soul to them. And where was I going with this? Oh, yeah, with travel.
Experience, but how was the experience physically? Wasn't it exhausting too? 5 days a week to be on a date?
Well, also, I didn't have it all dinner dates. It was like, if I'm going grocery shopping, I would tell a guy to meet me at the grocery store and have a smoothie with me, because I was going to go grocery shopping and he can help me if he wants.
That's
and then
adorable.
they always would. Things like that, where I would include them on errands I would have to do. And I was very busy. Like, I was writing a thesis at Princeton, a full-time preschool teacher, and an intern at Harvard, doing all this.
Oh my God.
And it's because I had the philosophy of, okay, if I want a more masculine men like to help. So I'm going to include them in things I need help with. Very basic things. Like literally, I'm going to laundromat today. Join me at the laundromat, and we can wash clothes and talk. Little things like that help a lot. So it wasn't exhausting, and because I wasn't sleeping with them, it was just like I didn't care if someone ghosted me or didn't like me. It was just like, who cares? I was just a random person I talked to. And
wow.
I never did called like any of the guys my boyfriends, even if they called me their girlfriend. I just told them like I'm seeing other people until I know this is the one. So that helps a lot psychologically, not breaking up with anyone ever. And I say all this to say the travel part. I traveled with probably like 3 guys total. And it was always like not a good experience with those guys. I knew they weren't my guys because when they felt like they paid for a trip, then they felt like you owe me your body, you owe me your time. What do you want to do? Lay in bed. They don't want to do anything but lay in bed. So then when I found my soulmate and he was like just normal and interested in like, yeah, let's see this, let's do that, let's have fun, and not about what can I get out of you now that I've got this trip. I knew he actually was a good guy and he wasn't using travel to manipulate. And a lot of guys do that where everything was fine until the trip. And if they weren't getting any on the trip, then we weren't cool. So that's a huge thing. I really recommend travel safely and like do things like, you know, maybe you have your own room where it's just a day thing and you're not in a vulnerable situation, but see how a guy treats you when he thinks he paid for some sort of getaway, and that will show his real intentions.
That's so true. That is so true. I always share how my husband and I, when we travel, and we traveled before we were married a lot, and that was one of the things I noticed too, because when I dated before him, that was very, very much my experience. The guys that obviously were not right for me, and we were going on a trip somewhere, there were expectations. And there were certain things that they need. And I remember always being so anxious about it. And I was young too. So I probably should have gotten my own room or, you know, paid for it. But with him, even before we were engaged, even before, you know, we used to go to Vegas all the time. His sister used to live there. It was close. And not only did he offer to get me my own room, but it was such the opposite that I always joke about this, that he would have like a whole itinerary of things we were going to do. Or if we travel to Cayman Islands or wherever we were. Okay, getting up at this time, we're going scuba diving, then we're doing this, then we're doing that. And I'd be like, hello, do you want to be alone with me at all? And he was like, oh, I didn't want to make you uncomfortable. So I planned all these activities. Right. And I was like, what is wrong with him? Does he not, you know? And he was like, no, I was trying to be, you know, respectful. And I felt like, I want to show you around, even if he hasn't been there. It's like, we want to see things. So I knew that was definitely a big part of it, but also because I'm a spaz, not a spaz. Maybe I am a spaz too, but when I travel, I stress so much. You know, I think just because where I came from, we didn't travel a lot. So everything from getting to the airport on time and packing is the worst. I hate packing. I wish I could just have someone pack for me. But he's always the even feel like fine, we'll get through it. It's all good. Don't worry. And he calmed me down. So now I find myself being that way. But that was such a big tell, you know, of how this person is. And I love that. That's why I say you learn so much when you travel with people, how they handle issues, delays, whatever, right? Things always happen. We ended up in Mexico once and we took the wrong tour bus.
Oh no.
It wasn't. I don't know what it was. And he was like, I was freaking out inside, but I could tell he was too. But he didn't let me know. He was like, all right, well, we're going to ask him to drop us off over here. Then I'm going to call the real because I'm like, they're going to take us out to the desert and kill us. And he's like, the desert is that way. We're not going in the desert. We're going in the direction of the we weren't going to do anything. But, you know, it's Mexico. So, and he was like deep in Mexico. So I think that was my point, you know, to add to what you were saying, is that traveling is so important with the person before you settle down even. right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Huge.
I think like all this information that we're sharing is so relevant for the modern world because in the secular world, it's also just American culture, since we're so focused on individuality, we don't have a process or protocol or tradition for anything. So many girls are just going out into the dating world and just like no plan, go out, full emotions, and that's why they're getting hurt or being in these dead-end relationships. And it's not about like purity culture or women's bodies or shame. To me, it's just like common sense of really like you will get attached to guys when you sleep with them. So make sure it's someone that you can create a future with, ideally. If it doesn't happen, so what? But at least you're doing everything with intention. And that's where a lot of women, like, just get into these horrible situations because they're not going on real dates. They're just randomly meeting people and hooking up with them for a long time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, and we also need to share as we, let you go in a minute, but we obviously there's so many more questions we could talk to you forever. I want to know about all your trips coming up. Like I'm
Yes.
coming. Where are you going next? I've been wanting to go to Kenya
I want to go too.
Yes, I'm serious. It's so fun.
I want to know all about that. And we will, in the show notes, if people want to find you, we're going to have your website, all your information for everyone to find everything. But I also want to add to that you have been a very big ally to
Thank
the
you.
Jewish community. And it has been very evident and huge, especially in our groups, in our matchmaking groups. You are one of the few people who have been a big supporter and an ally, like I said, which is really hard since October 7th to have find people who are understanding and they're educated about the truth and what's happening. So I just want to thank you for that. And I want people to know that.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it as like a human rights thing. I don't see it as like I'm doing anything special. It's just like, okay, if I have someone that's Jewish and they're looking for a match and I already have them, I don't have to go out and get them. I like have no problem matching people for free and goodwill as long as both sides appreciate it. Like it's all cool with me. And it's like the business side. If there's a referral fee, great. I appreciate it. And it's just transparency. And that's all it is. It's like we can do the best we can and help each other.
Of course. And, I think as us Jewish people, we have always been allies to the Black community. I think it's important to continue to be there for people. And a lot of us have found ourselves completely alone, in the last couple of years. So it's good to know. So we appreciate it. And we would love to have you back on. And maybe we'll do some videos on these trips because I'm so excited. I'm going to start saving today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, it's far out, so it's enough time for people to plan. I'll send you the details and also let you know. And if your son is in Hawaii in September, I'm going to do a local meetup in Hawaii because I'm going to Hawaii.
Ooh.
But I'm not bringing people. I'm going to be in Waikiki. I'm going to do experiences. So if he's already there, that would be awesome.
So they're both actually, they're my 20-year-old and my 25-year-old who, he'll be almost 26 then. They're on the Big Island, but that's just the hop,
that'd be great.
Whatever. So,
I'll definitely include him. That'd be so cute.
Oh, I think they should both totally go. And I will definitely come because we go there all the time. So, but thank you for being here. Thank you for talking to us and answering our questions.
So much. I appreciate you coming on and sharing all of your knowledge and your wisdom. I think it'll be super helpful to everyone.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. It was so fun, and I look forward to talking soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share. And even if you didn't enjoy it, share anyway. Thank you for listening and come back to Someone Had to Say It.